All right. So let's start with actually one of the harder questions as I was trying to answer these beforehand and do the prep. Pancho asked, which player would you say is the biggest winner or best player this season, and who has had the biggest drop off? And I'm wondering if we have the same player here.
So the thing that I'm wondered about that question is he's talking about Barca players or just in general?
I mean,
like
I would
Liga
assume,
players or Barca players or players in world football.
I was assuming he's talking about Barca players only. I will also add the disclaimer and caveat here that if you did ask a question, I warned you in the Facebook Messenger group that Levon was my guest. So you have to understand that he's going to question your question, then he'll answer your question. Of course, that's the order. So just want to set that disclaimer up right at the beginning. So Pancho, you get the first treatment. So yeah, I think he meant Barca player. Then who is the biggest winner or best player? I had a tough one with this one. I mean, even choices, even the choices that I'll throw at you that I went through was I thought Memphis was good to start the year. Having to do everything and score the goals and be the man up top. I thought Araujo has had his moments for sure, particularly under Koeman, actually. And then Piqué and Busquets, they picked up their level under Xavi. They've had good moments. Alba's had good moments, but again, they've all had their issues. Piqué, Busquets, and Alba have had their bad games too. So I had to go, believe it or not, even though he has not played much at all, is Pedri, because Barcelona is just better. I know he has not played a lot, and he has not been the reason why Barca are wherever they're at top four, but I think he's been Barca's best player consistently when he's on the field. And best player, again, is a little bit of, different guys are asked to do different things. But I'd say as a player who has given you a consistent high level each and every game he's been on the field, I think the expectation for Pedri has been the highest of every moment he's been on the field. But I get actually with the exception of Ansu, but in Ansu's case, I'm actually punishing him for not being totally available. But even when he was available, he had his big moments, but there was also a few games where he didn't really do much of anything. So Pedri was my pick. Do you have a different one?
I think neither Ansu nor Pedri can be in the contention for best player of the season if they only played a couple of games.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Let's be serious here.
Yeah.
The best player is difficult. I know the winner. Like if you ask me who won this season, and that's Gavi, because to be a 17-year-old kid and just explode onto the scene like that, like it's unprecedented. Wow.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think right.
Wow.
Best player and biggest winner. I think for sure Gabi's the biggest winner, 100%. Yeah. And then the second part of that question was biggest drop off. Who's had the biggest drop off? And I think you and I might have the same answer for this one too.
I'm not sure. I think this is the first season that beyond knee-jerk takes on Barca Twitter, that Ter Stegen's position in the team has come under pressure, where if he had continued with the same type of performances that we had seen until fairly recently, because I must say the last month, 6 weeks or so, he's been okay. But if he had continued the way that he was playing the first couple of months of the season, then you would really have to wonder if the club was going to sell him or not.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I think his last month has been better, and so I think we've almost forgotten that he was struggling more than he ever has almost in that month or two. So the way I viewed this question was, going through every single player up and down the squad list. I think all of them have had good games or bad games. So I thought on players that were part of the squad and basically have just been pushed to the peripheral now. And so I think, unfortunately, me with Dest, I think, unfortunately, the answer might be Dest or Mingueza, because they went from being members of the squad. Dest in particular was #Dream Team. And then Dest all of a sudden was supposed to be sold in January. And then Mingueza went from being in the team to the club saying, hey, you should probably take on a loan to Valencia. The player refused. So now he's just going to sit on the bench, and is, especially with the names we'll talk about later who are rumored for the summertime. Certainly Mingueza probably does not have a spot in the squad moving forward, even though he is one of those many, many, many La Masia players. And then to that point too, he may not be on the field, so I can't punish him. Almost the opposite of what I did with Pedri. But Sergio Roberto went from being your third captain to, it seems like the club is really considering whether or not they're going to renew him at all, because the whole thing about renewing him was getting his salary down far enough where you could register the players you needed to. But because he never had to take that salary reduction, and they were able to use Umtiti's salary reduction to register the January signings, now you just have a player on high wages who you don't need to renew anymore. which is, again, it's interesting. And if it was any other player that wasn't a Catalan captain or someone like that, I think there would be much more of an acceptance of saying, hey, the club's going to let him leave on a free because he's on too high a wages and he doesn't give you what he needs to. He also hasn't played for 2 years. And so I think if it was any other player, then it would be something. But clearly, obviously, Roberto being a Catalan captain is coming from La Masia is seen as this totem, this figurehead, more than he actually is on the field, I think, by the club. And the club is starting to reanalyze that, I think, at this point. So I think I'd have to go with Roberto, unfortunately, for off the field at least, not on the field, because he hasn't been on the field. And when he has, I don't think it's been his year either. He's either getting hurt or not up to it.
Mingueza is an excellent call, because Mingueza went from somebody who all of a sudden was seen as a valued member of the team, who, of course, with time is going to become even better than the previous season. I'm not saying that he was a star player last season, but he did seem like, okay, hey, there's something there, and he can be a good squad member, to somebody who probably will not be on the squad anymore because his level has really, really dropped consistently. Not a poor performance here or there, but his level dropped consistently. Sergio Roberto is injured for 4 months. So let's see what happens after that. He still has not played under Xavi. I think that what will probably end up happening is the club will renew him on low wages. He's probably going to choose to stay at the club. I mean, he's made more than enough money off of his Paris Saint-Germain goal to last him a lifetime.
Yep.
I also think that having 5 midfielders of the level of Busquets, Frankie de Jong, Pedri, Gavi, and Nico Gonzalez, you want a 6th midfielder to have a 6th midfielder, and you don't want to have to play him all that much. Because I think Riqui Puig is also out the door this summer. I don't see him continuing. And I think it makes more sense to renew Sergio Roberto on 2, 3, maybe even 4 million a season than to sign whatever name of whatever midfielder is being mentioned in the press. Because if you sign the guy from Milan, Kessie,
yep,
then you still end up paying him 5 million a season. Plus, you end up giving him a signing bonus and whatnot. Plus, you're going to end up giving him a 5-year contract. And do you actually need to play him with the midfielders that we already have? No. So it makes infinitely more sense to just renew Sergio Roberto. And
And if you view Sergio, and I've said this for a long time, if you view Sergio Roberto as a 4 million per year 5th midfielder or 6th midfielder and the backup right back, if that is his role, then absolutely, that's absolutely fine. Because you're right, he's an upgrade on Riqui Puig in that position of the 6th midfielder or 5th midfielder, as Busquets, if he ever starts to get on the horse to head off in the sunset. And then for right back, it's true to just have him as depth at that position as well. And again, he's a captain, he's well liked within the club. For sure. Okay, so next one.
To continue on that, as an inverted right back, that will be his perfect position, because he's not a right back, but he's not really a midfielder. And an inverted right back is kind of somebody who plays both of those positions at the same time, right? So that makes sense as well.
In a 3 at the back, where he's been fine as a right center back when he's well protected as well.
Ooh, I don't know.
All right. Well, he's a little extended, but he's done it before. He's literally done it before. But all right, here's Dinesh. Hey, Levon, I know you went to Camp Nou against Atletico Madrid, so you saw that one. 1, did you feel like a beginning of something new, something great?
No.
Okay. Although we expected, I mean, if you don't need to give more, you don't have to. I think there's still, not being at the stadium, it was the right result. And my takeaway from that game was that they finally got over the hill of winning the big game. But surely, of course, like in the big sense of things, it was not a club that was, it's not a team that's pushing for the title. It's a team pushing for top 4. And they beat another top 4 team who's now, not to say that Atleti's had to fall from grace, but do you think the last 20 minutes, though, also skewed the way you left the stadium a little bit? That would be the thing I would add to that question.
No, no. I think one of the things here is that there are still so many veterans on the team. So and some of them played very well that day. So we had PK who played well. We had Dani Alves who played well. They were not without fault. I mean, PK was not perfect on the first goal, as many people pointed out. Dani Alves was almost entirely at fault on the second goal, which nobody talks about at all. Jordi Alba had a good game. Busquets had a weird game where he actually had a good game, but he had terrible moments during that game, which could have put the team. If Atleti had taken advantage of, then Busquets' moments could have lost us the game. So when you look at a team that has 4 people who are well in their 30s, pushing 40 even, in the case of Dani Alves, it's difficult to look at it as the start of something new. We do know that the rest of the team is very young, and at some point we will see like really the start of what this team is going to become. But I think that some of the senior citizens on the squad will have to be phased out for really that feeling to be there. The other thing, and this is like the atmosphere at the Camp Nou was amazing. And what a lot of people will not realize, or you'll realize it, but you won't feel it, is that it was like 50 days since the last home game.
Mm-hmm.
Which in the middle of a season feels like 50 years. Like if you're a season ticket holder and you go to every game, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the season, there's like almost 2 complete months that you don't go to the stadium. That's just eternal, man. That's rough. That's insane. Normally, like you go to the stadium 2 or 3 times a month. Because there's a home game at least every 2 weeks. Just go home, away, and then there are all the midweek games. So it was just this really, really weird period where we didn't get to support our team for 50 days, and then of course we were all excited because the game that we were back in the stadium was against Atleti. The other thing here. And I didn't realize that until I actually sat down and the game started. I was like, oh my God, I get to see Pedri live.
Yeah.
Because I missed the season opener.
Yeah.
So I didn't see him in the season opener because there was an issue with my season ticket for that game. And then the only game that I saw him live was against Bayern, in which we were killed 3-0.
Right.
And that game went south quite fast. So that game, I did not really have the feeling like, oh my God, I'm gonna see Pedri. But it's been 18 months. 18 months that Pedri has played for Barcelona. And the game against Atleti was the first game that I sat down. I was like, oh, look at this guy. Look at how he moves. Look at how smooth he plays. And that was just a delight.